got to figure it out.
Wow, cool socks, huh?
Oh, that's for, yeah, that's for you, personally.
I tell you. Gotta make sure he is.
We would like to welcome everyone out to our City Council meeting this evening. We'd like to call this meeting to order. We'd like to begin by having a prayer by Glenn Hunsaker, after which we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Zachary Snow.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're so grateful to be here this evening in our city council meeting. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to live in such a fine community as Orem, and pray for thy blessing to be upon us and upon the council and the mayor, that especially this evening as we discuss important matters, that we will be guided by thy Spirit and do those things pleasing in thy sight and for the good of this community. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
May the audience please rise. Salute. Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under all, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Audience at ease.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Zachary. Councilmember Debbie LaRae is not in attendance, but is on the phone. Debbie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Great to have you on the phone. We would like to go over the approval of minutes of our City Council meeting May 9th, 2017, and the minutes of our joint Orem Alpine School District meeting on May 10th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I would like to go over the upcoming events. On June the 17th, we have our annual bike ride at 9 a.m. at Palisade Park. August the 15th, we have our primary election. July the 29th, we're kind of bouncing around here. We have the Walker Sanderson Funeral Home Car Show at 4 o'clock. And on September the 13th through the 15th, we have the Utah League of Cities and Towns 2017 Annual Conference. And on November the 7th, we have our general election. We have an appointment to a board, the Beautification Advisory Commission, and this particular gentleman is Melvin Rodriguez, is he here? If he is, would he please stand? Okay, Melvin is a longtime resident of Orem. He is an architect in Salt Lake City. He was a finalist for Entrepreneur of the Year at BYU, and he specializes in designing homes and landscapes. So is there a motion to accept him onto the beautification committee?
So moved?
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Thank you. We would now like to have a report from the Senior Advisory Commission, and Kay Bradford will be giving that. So Kay, if you would like to go to the podium.
You all look wonderful out there. How blessed we are, how blessed we are to have Carl Hurst. Stand up, Carl. They are just, they make us feel like paradise there at the Orem Friendship Center.
Yes.
You know, I got up this morning and I said, this is my lucky day. I get to come to the city council and tell them all the great things that we are doing over there at the Orem Center. Now, I'm sorry, but this report is going to be a repeat of the last few years, only it's going to be better. It's wondrous what a hug will do. A hug will clear you when you're blue. A hug will say, I love you so. Or, gee, I hate to see you go. A hug delights and warms and charms. I guess that's why God made the song. So stretch those arms without delay and give someone a hug today. And a love with hugs, we need kisses. So we got some kisses for you all. Let's see.
There you go, Dave. I don't want you to feel.
We can give you a sack and you can pass it.
Go ahead, give him a kiss, David.
And we can give you some kisses and pass it that way.
We do need to make the city council a little sweeter, so this will be great.
And we'll even give these people over there some kisses. And we'll even give these people over here. Well, anyway, kisses. You know, at the Orem Friendship Center, we give hugs and kisses. You know, no matter how grouchy you're feeling, a smile is certainly healing. It grows in a wreath all around your front teeth, thus preserving your face from congealing. We give smiles at the Orem Friendship Center. Now, let me tell you something else we do. Gina started a joke a month, so anyone who wants to tell a joke can get up and tell a joke. So I love jokes, and so I've got this one I'd like to give to you. Doug Smith is on his deathbed and knows the end is near. His nurse, his wife, his children are with him. He asks for 2 witnesses to be present to record his last wishes. And when it all is ready, he begins to speak. My son, Bernie, I want you to take the Mayfair houses. My daughter, Sybil, you take the apartments over in the East End. My son, Jamie, I want you to take the offices over in the city center. And Sarah, my dear wife, you get all the residential buildings on the banks of the river. The nurse and witnesses are blown away as they didn't realize that he had so many properties. As Doug slipped away, the nurse said, Mrs. Smith, your husband must have been a very successful man in accumulating all this property. Property, Sarah replied. The idiot had a paper route. You know, life is better when you're laughing. And so at the Orem Friendship Center, we not only give hugs and smiles and jokes, we play bingo, we sing, we have movies and friends. And you will find at the Orem Friendship Center, that we have over 2,150 members. We have served over 14,189 meals, and we do so much more. So I have brought you all a copy of our newsletter, which, well, where's the newsletter? Oh, here they are. Okay. These are Gina here started our newsletter. We get it every month, and it has wonderful information on all the things we do over there at the center. Will you please share that? And would you please pass one out, all your people up there?
Here you go, my people.
These are wonderful newsletters. It just tells you all the things we're doing, and it's just a great, great newsletter every month. Now, let's see here. Right now, I want to tell you something. Right now, we are so excited. We are going to have our Flamingo Day. So on Flamingo Days, we all put a shirt on. It says, what does it say?
Putting the bling in golden years.
Putting the blink in. So we all wear our wonderful shirts. Another invention of our dear friend Gina here. We put our shirts on. We also put our feathers on. And we also put our hats on. And we have a riot. It's pretty fun. I hope you'll all come out. June the 23rd is our Flamingo Day. You're all invited. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful time.
If you're doing the flamingo dance, we'll be there.
Right.
Every year.
Right.
Mayor, I'll see you there.
Okay.
Right.
You'll do it.
We go through hoops.
No, I'm going to watch them do it.
Anyway, in closing, we want to thank all the mayor, the city council, and all those who really support our Orem Friendship Center. You are the cream of the crop, and we hope that you've all had a terrific Tuesday. Life is a celebration, and old age is a gift. We love it. Thank you all for coming.
You are the cream of the crop. Thank you. I can attest that the Senior Citizen Center is a rocking place, so thank you, Kay. We will now have a special oath of office of the Orem Park Ranger recruits sworn in by Brandon Stocksdale with the National Park Service.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Unfortunately, we don't have any costumes or treats or poems or anything, but we do have some very excited young people here to become our first class of Orem Park Rangers. And I have Brandon Stocksdale here with us of the Park Service, and also Emma Bowers, who is our management intern. And she's been doing all the heavy lifting on this project, so I'll let her introduce it.
Good evening. We are excited to present the Orem Park Ranger program. This program is an initiative to encourage children and their parents to explore Orem parks and recreational venues and to get to know our city just a little bit better. We want to encourage children to put down technology, play outside, and serve. We hope that this program will help our youngest citizens to become experts in parks and in Orem.
So how many park rangers do we have?
Tonight, about 60, but we have about 950 enrolled.
Okay. So can the 60 come up?
Want them all the way up front, Mr. Mayor?
Well, they'll come right over in here. Brandon, you want to just put them all right here?
We're kind of hurt on the side.
That's the best looking picture all day. So back in the day, I served as a park ranger at the Grand Canyon on the South Rim, and there's a picture of what I used to look like in my park ranger outfit. Come forward, kids.
Okay, come on down, guys. Let's come right up there. Okay. You guys want to come on the steps?
Just come right up here on the steps and We're going to want to shake your hands when you're done, but let's have the swearing in ceremony first.
All right. And go ahead and look out towards that guy. And
So come up here and then turn around and look at the crowd.
look at the guy in the green shirt.
All right, well, living here in Utah, we have an awesome opportunity to live so close to so many great national parks. We've got Zion and Capitol Reef and Bryce Canyon and so many others, and it's a great opportunity to learn more about the world around us and to explore and to learn about ourselves. And living here in Orem, we've got a great opportunity to do the same thing as well, being so close to Mount Timpanogos and the waterfalls and the river and all these great parks that our city leaders have planned for us here. So you guys have the great opportunity and the responsibility now to go out and to help the community to be good citizens and to learn more about Orem. I couldn't come and represent the National Park Service without sharing a Teddy Roosevelt quote. So President Roosevelt said, "It is an incalculable added pleasure to any one's sum of happiness if he or she grows to know, even slightly and imperfectly, how to read and enjoy the wonder book of nature." And I hope you guys have that opportunity this summer as you go out and to learn and explore about our parks here in the city. All right, so if I can get you guys to all raise your hand, we're going to take the Orem Park Ranger Recruit Oath, or Promise. I don't know what we're calling it. Okay, so if you want to repeat after me. As an honorary Orem Park Ranger Recruit,
Orem.
I promise that I will explore and learn about Orem parks, serve others, and respect the nature around me. All right, good job. You're all official.
Can you turn around and shake up hands?
Congratulations.
Get it better next year.
How are you? Congratulations. Good to have you here. Have fun in the parks.
Congratulations.
How are you? Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job. Proud of you.
Congratulations. 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 How are you there? Congratulations. I like your hat.
Good job.
All right. Congratulations. Congratulations. Got another one right here.
Good job. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good job.
Kenzie. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job.
You guys ready to explore the parks?
Congratulations.
Found it?
All right, congratulations. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. We have some comments. Jamie, would you like to make a comment? No?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. David, did you hit it?
No.
Okay. Sam? Okay. All right, thank you very much. That was exciting. We now would like to go on to the personal appearance portion of our meeting. Item number 14, we have 4 people who have signed up to make a personal appearance. We would ask that you give us your name and hold your comments to 3 minutes. Our first is Ammon Pavan, and the second one is Norma Garley.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Ammon Pavone. I'm a resident of Orem, Utah, and I wanted to speak briefly today on a subject that I actually hold pretty dear to me, and that's of financial education. Something that I've seen growing up, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us are aware of, is that there's always a need for people to become more financially aware. I think a lot of the issues that are going on in our country right now boil down to that, how the consumer consumes, how they spend, how they save. And what I am part of is a national financial literacy campaign that is going on right now across the U.S. And what we're doing is we're going out to our local councils and asking for their support in this campaign. What we're doing is we actually have a program already established through this workbook where actually we can teach schools, libraries, organizations, businesses about these basic concepts in finance so then they can become more well aware of the decisions that they're making in their day-to-day life. I really believe that can add a lot of benefit to the community because we know that at the end of the day, we're never free until we're financially free. And along with that, there's a book that is called Saving Your Future that we also distribute. And what's great about our campaign is that we do the workshops and we do the educational programs free of charge. And we really want to make an impact on the U.S., starting with the U.S. and eventually the world. And briefly, I would just like to share a couple parts from this book. Found in the introduction, just a couple of statistics and a couple of things that we want to introduce. In the U.S., 33% or more than 77 million of Americans don't pay their bills on time. More than 77 million. Also, 39% carry credit card debt month to month. Or if we were to look at a room of 100 people, that would be 39, close to 40 out of 100. And also, only 59 out of 100 of adults say they actually have savings. So that begs the question, what is going on with the other 41 out of 100? Most of us don't wait to become a statistic to know that we're in trouble. These problems are all around us. They happen to our own family and our friends' families. It's ironic that we live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but we always have money problems. We can work hard all our lives, but retire poor.
We'll need to have you stop.
Sure.
So appreciate your comments.
Yeah, and I'll stick around afterwards to answer any questions and see how we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from Norma, and then afterwards, John Gardner.
My name is Norma Farley. I live in Orem. And I have a concern about the general fund that is being, the water fund being transferred to the general fund. $900,000 goes from the water fund to the general fund. That's what I think my paper is telling me. It says in your paper here that rate changes at $1.42 a month, water base rate increase. My problem is Social Security doesn't think we have a pay, that we don't get a pay raise. There hasn't been any cost of living increase. I want you to all realize that. It comes from the government. But the $1.42 a month, I have had to not plant a garden this year. I have let my back lawn just die. I'm taking out a bunch of plants on the west side of my driveway because if I go to tier 2, I will pay at $2.42. I know that isn't much for any of ya. It is me. I've practically got more outgo than income already. And to me, $900,000, I realize I have read the paper that says we all need to help pay for Orem's recreation, the parks, all that stuff. I realize all that has to be paid for, but I can't afford it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be going over some of the detail of the items you mentioned later in the meeting, if you can stay. Now hear from John Gardner.
I would like to begin by saying that we as neighbors in Southwest Orem appreciate the decision to not put an entrance to the former soccer field on 400 West when it was reconstructed to be a UVU parking lot. That demonstrated to us a good faith effort to respect the limitations of traffic congestion on 400 West and the area surrounding Lake Ridge Junior High School. The issue of additional traffic to 400 West and in front of Lake Ridge Junior High School has been addressed on multiple occasions by many people. Simple mathematics indicates that the increase in automobiles would exceed 2,400% if the PEG development is approved. Possible trips by those 1,200 new vehicles in that area would likely increase even more because they would be driven by single adults who would make more trips than would the families that formerly lived in the neighborhood. The solution to this problem is for the traffic to enter and exit onto UVU property, Wolverine Way and Campus Drive. However, I've been told that the UVU administration would not allow this and that the traffic flow on 400 West in front of the junior high school is, quote, Orem City's problem. I disagree with that attitude. The problem is being caused by the university bringing so many students to Southwest Orem. They've refused to house the students, and they depend on developers to do that. Now they refuse to even cooperate in solving the traffic flow so that it does not hinder the already busy neighborhood and the junior high school. Getting the university to cooperate with allowing traffic to enter and exit to the UVU campus may not be as difficult as one might think. At least two of the principals motivating this project are also wealthy, major, and frequent donors to Utah Valley University. They've had the ear of university administrators on many occasions. Since we have these substantial donors on both sides of the issue, it should not be too unreasonable for them to negotiate with the university the solution that includes traffic flows south and west to the campus. However, even if they cannot get the university to cooperate, then this neighborhood needs to remain zoned R8 and the project should be denied. At Mayor Brunt's campaign event held at Tucano's on May 31st, he was reported in the newspaper as saying, quote, Orem is one of the brightest stars in the state. We have strong families and residents here, end quote. Members of the City Council have also made similar statements during their campaigns as well as after being elected. Please remember, Council members, that Southwest Orem and the area surrounding UVU is an Orem neighborhood and is part of those campaign and council promises. Let it be clear that I vigorously oppose replacing a peaceful neighborhood consisting of single-family residences with apartments housing 1,500 single adults. That is not in keeping with the family-friendly city values that you council members seem to espouse. However, if the project were approved, it is especially egregious to allow their vehicles to exit and enter from 400 West in front of the junior high school. It is mind-boggling to think that any developer, university official, or city council member would think that the monumental increases in traffic congestion to the neighborhood and in front of Lake Ridge Junior High School is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from Angel.
City Council, I'm from Boston. I'll clear that up when you hear my accent. My concerns are also with the PEG development near UVU campus and Lake Ridge Junior High. My biggest opposition has to do with putting student dorms on residentially zoned city land. If they are student dorms, then UVU should take responsibility for their own dorms and their own needs and put them on their own land and preserve our zones. If they will house other residents besides students, then they should go on the State Street Master Plan. So I really am confused about this project. Let's make the best use of the approved land bridge that just went through. Why don't we keep the apartments on the other side of the freeway? UVU has said they do not want to get into the expense or all the problems associated with student dorms. Does that mean it's our problem and your problem instead of their problem? Now, on the positives, Brad Daw has said that the state can lease their land for little to nothing for developers, and they can still be responsible for the buildings. So if we put them on the south and east of campus, That would preserve our neighborhoods. It would keep the high rises more towards the highway, and the students pouring out of those would go right on the highway exit instead of into our neighborhoods. So perhaps some type of land swap with UVU where we could put their soccer fields in that where the PEG development is, and what the PEG development put their apartments over there. It just seems, I think, that with some brainstorming and reasonableness, we can work things out. We as neighbors of UVU need the strongest protection from you to avoid our neighborhoods from degrading. I love my neighborhood. I love living next to UVU. All my kids walk to school. What neighborhood do you have? You can walk to elementary, junior high, 2 high schools. I actually teach at UCAS, and college. My kids have walked to all of those. I love my neighborhood. I'd like to preserve it. Traffic, crime, safety, quality of life are all in your hands for these neighborhoods. I'm concerned this might set a precedence for other developers who want to get a rezone. What happened with PEG, buy the houses, tear them down, and then tell the city, don't worry, we'll put something nicer there. I don't think that's a good precedence. Remember, ICO is watching. ICO is right around the corner, 4 blocks down. And is ICO going to tear those houses down that they own and then tell you that we want to rezone? Is that what's coming next? Applying for rezoning after investment and demolition implies collusion. All the neighbors are wondering about that. Now, the negatives, if we do put the apartments there, then we're going to have the need for commercial development, gas stations, fast food, commercial ventures. Just look at Wolverine Crossing. We were there the other night and we're amazed. Or if they don't have those there, then we're going to have increased traffic. Or if you do put them in, homeowners like my husband and I will bolt. We've already had some neighbors leaving, and then if our houses get bought up by investors, which is already happening, then we'll have illegal rentals. Lastly, the City Council is our last and only defense to keep Orem, especially the homes near UVU, family-friendly and safe. We need you guys to help us in this development.
Thank you. We will now go ahead and move on to our consent items. I don't believe that we have any.
You have one more, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry. Would you like to speak? Go ahead.
So we have a couple Webelos scouts that would just like to talk and ask a couple questions to the council as they're earning some badges tonight. If that's
okay. Typically, you would do that in a meeting in a different room, but go ahead and have them come up and they can ask the questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
My name is Ethan Puertas, and my question was, what is the biggest problem facing Utah today?
So we can answer these questions afterwards if you can stick around, and we'll be happy to meet with you privately on that. Could we have the other question?
Hello, my name is Corbin Varghese, and my question was, why did you become what you are today?
Okay. Any council members that would like to answer those questions, I would invite to meet with you after the meeting, and I'll be happy to meet with you after the meeting. So, thank you very much. We'll now go ahead and go on to our scheduled items, the first one being item number 16, which is a continued item of a PD 11 development standard. This is an ordinance amending Section 22-11-23B and Appendix 10 of the Orem City Code pertaining to development standards of the PD 11 zone at 1430 South Sandhill Road. And our presenter is Jason Bench. And we have someone here from D.R. Horton. Would you like to introduce yourself again?
Chris L. Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brunch, members of the council. As you recall, this was before you last meeting. A couple of concerns that the council had was obviously with the elevations and then also the density of the project. This is the revised concept plan. They've removed, if you remember or recall, there were some units at that location. They've actually removed those. They're at 142 total units, which brings them to under 14 units per acre. And they have provided revised elevations, which you have in your packet, but this is some revisions of these units, and if
Should we have maybe Giselle go over, or you go over what the revisions are?
Yep. Not yours plugged in?
I'm plugged in, but I don't know. If we can switch to this one. So in meeting with the mayor and working with you guys on the council, we have made some changes. One of the things in our discussions with the mayor was the fact that there's been several developers prior to us that have come and asked for this. They've all been successful in achieving your approvals, but they haven't been successful in financially executing the project. We wanted to assure you guys that if we're successful this evening, we won't be back, and neither will anybody else. We have the financial capacity to come through and do this project. It's part of our business plan. We would love to see it happen. The other points that we talked about were the fact that because we are a publicly traded company, the ROI, return on investment, is very important to Mr. Horton. The more we can turn our money, the faster the investors like us, right? So capacity financially is not a problem because we have over $750,000 in the bank. And we'll come in and we'll do it quickly. We're not going to disrupt your neighborhood for 5 years. We're going to be there. Unlike other proposals you've probably seen, there have been several phases where they've cordoned off just several small buildings into a phase to help them with their construction. We're only proposing 2 phases, and the reason for that 2 phases is because we live in Utah and it's going to snow in November. And the asphalt plant's closed down, and it's just slightly larger than what we can achieve as a goal to get everything done, or we would come in and do the whole project all at once. But we will do this project. We hope to be under construction by August and out for sales by November, December, so that we can have closings and people moving in. We would love to be able to do this project. We do build quickly, so we would only be out, and our projection is that we would be done with in about 20 months from the time that we start building homes. So hopefully those are all good things for you guys to consider, and that they'll be helpful in helping us achieve the opportunity tonight to move forward with this project. And just as a side note, got the wrong presentation, sorry. Yep, that's last time's. Let me go back to my desktop. We left for you guys some Parade of Home tickets. Hopefully you got those and enjoyed them. But we were awarded last night the Judge's Choice Award for our home out in Sky Estates. So I hope you all get a chance to go and see that. But what's important to us is that this award is presented by our peers. So it's a quality in both design and construction and architecture. So by achieving this award, we hope that you can see that we do our best and we try and present a project that will be acceptable to the market, because we do really well there. So the architecture has, the front's not going to look a lot different to you, but we have submitted these changes. Oh,
I think we have. I think we have those changes.
There we go.
Okay.
So there's our award. There we go. So these are the changes that we had sent to you. From the front, there's not a lot that you can see that's different. We've changed a little bit of the color and the layout that things work. This is our farmhouse style. Again, this is our Craftsman, which is in the 2-story that goes around the outer edges of the project. This is the 3-story building that would be located along 1430. And this is the 3-story building that would be on the interior of the projects.
Now, can you go back to that? You changed how much stucco was on that.
Correct, yeah.
And you changed the coloring on it.
Yeah, so these are the buildings that we submitted. This is the farmhouse style, and these are the changes that we've made. We've done a full wrap. Prior to this, what you were seeing on the sides and in the rear, there contains some stucco. We've removed the stucco from all of the two-story buildings. There's no longer any stucco. It will be full wrap with cementatious fiberboard. And we've changed, if you see the white sections on the rear elevation, those were double colored last time in board and batten, and then the stucco was in the blue recesses. That's now lap siding, and we've done board and batten on the back. So the architecture continues all the way around the building for this style of our of home. On this townhome, the craftsman style, we've delineated the floors rather than accenting the peaks so that there's some differentiation in the buildings. And we've got dual colors. Again, it's a full wrap. We've removed all the stucco from these buildings as well.
Now, we don't have these in color because you had sent them in color before.
Yeah, these were the colors, but this is not, so what I showed you previously are the same thing,
Okay.
but this shows you all four sides, so you can
Okay.
see how we're treating all four sides of the building.
Okay.
This one does have rock that we've added. We've extended it around the front. It'll go inside the porches and along the sides of the building to the rear.
So on the right-hand side, on your left and right elevation, the bottom 3 feet is a layered rock type material.
The wainscot that continues around all sides except for the rear. And then we don't do it on the rear because when we build these homes, on the back we do a privacy screen, and it's hard to attach to the rock. It offsets it more, and people like that to be closer. So if we use the lap siding on the rear, we can put those fences right next to the homes and create the privacy screen, which is a 6-foot vinyl fence that extends 10 feet out from the buildings. This is the interior 3-story building, and what's changed on this is we've eliminated a large amount of the stucco. If you see the gray areas that are highlighted now, it makes the building pop just a little bit better because we've added some extra depth to try and get rid of the boxiness that was mentioned, and then we've removed the stucco, a large amount. There is still stucco on the 3rd story, but we're only around 25% stucco on these buildings. And then this one is the one along 1430. It's the one that contains the rock on the end units. The other thing that's important to know on this type of this building is that this is shown to you in a 4-plex. We will also have a 5-plex and a 6-plex. And when those additional units are added to the middle of the building, so if you look at that large square area in the middle and pull it apart, we'll add another section that looks like that in a 6-plex, and the lower front facade will have rock. We didn't have time to render all of the different building types in the time that was given, but I wanted you guys to know that it won't just be rock on the ends. When we build a bigger building, a 5-plex or a 6-plex, those added units will have rock on the front facade as well. And again, that's the map that shows you where each one of those building types sits, and Jason has noted that we did decrease the density to 142 by moving that center 4-plex in the common area and increasing our open space. So that's what we have for you this evening, and hopefully we've met the expectations of the council and can move forward.
So do you have some of the color pictures of those units?
I have those. Oh, it's flipped out. Sorry. Those are the colored pictures. Yes.
All right. Okay, any questions from the council? Sam.
So I think the main 2 issues we identified 3 weeks ago were the elevations as well as the density. It appears both of those have been addressed, at least to my satisfaction. Debbie, if you're still in the line, I'm not sure if you feel the same, but Jason, was there anything else? Was there any give and take? In other words, did we move move ahead in some areas and then backtrack on other areas, or is the rest of the proposal consistent with what we were discussing last?
Yeah, the rest of it's consistent.
Thank you.
Councilmember McDonald.
For those in the public who may not be aware, this project has been approved many times, as was stated, and it has been approved for this level of density. So we're not changing the density, we're just approving this particular project on that land. Is that correct, Jason?
That is correct.
So it's already zoned for this, but for the tweak of the various elevations, correct?
Yes, and some minor tweaks to the setback, which can be addressed.
But again, no increased density on the project?
No.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Sumner.
I'm going to go clear back to the neighborhood meeting. In the minutes, Larry Peterson had some questions, and you said you'd address them after. I've since talked to him, and he says you have not. And in fact, he's sent you some requests or about his property, and you haven't even returned answers.
I spoke with Mr. Peterson late last week. I have spoken with him, and we have addressed those items. He's received $18,000 for the water shares that he says he holds, and he's also received a quitclaim deed, which has been recorded. He now owns the land next to the detention basin for that access road that we discussed the last time, as well as the boundary adjustment around his barn. He asked me to coordinate with his nephew, Jeff Coons, on the offer that he has kind of countered to our offer, and we're working through that. So I'm surprised that he would represent something different, but I don't believe he's here this evening.
No, he's traveling. I asked him to come, but he's traveling.
Yes, no, but I did talk with him. He didn't raise any of those issues or concerns, but I do have a map that can show you. The areas that we discussed with them. He's received title to this area and to this area, and we'll trade an easement here to access the utilities for an easement through our roadway to give him access to the barn.
He has easement through from 1430?
Yes, we will grant him an access easement through 1430.
Okay. So as far as you know, you've answered everything?
Debbie, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do appreciate them making it less boxy and adding more stone. I do appreciate that response to my concerns. I just consider that this is Orem, and adding more stone and making it even nicer makes me happier. So, but I'm comfortable that they've improved it.
Okay, good. I feel like that they've made some good improvements. Stucco down to 25%, coloring better, stone better, and Jason, you're comfortable with it at this point?
Right.
Okay. Any further questions? This is not a public hearing. Any further questions from the council? You bet.
So we can go on the record. You'll make it straight with Larry if there's any conflicts or disagreements or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll continue to work with him.
Councilmember Lentz.
And just on that note, my understanding is that the property hasn't been sold yet at this point, so I'm guessing if he was overly concerned, he might not necessarily proceed with the transaction.
Correct, which is why we don't own it, but the seller who is selling to us through our contract is obligated and has already exercised those obligations prior to receiving our commitment. So if you look at the county, I don't know if the county's updated it, but it happened like 2 weeks ago. He did receive that deed.
Okay.
So.
But if no one else has any other comments or questions, I'd
go ahead.
Motion. Okay. I move that we, by ordinance, amend section 22-11-23B and Appendix X of the Orem City Code pertaining to development standards of the PD11 zone at 1430 South Sandhill Road.
Oh,
Hold on. Debbie, do you have a question?
no, sorry, I'm just trying to get the YouTube feed back up.
Okay. So I'll second that motion. And we'll go ahead and Debbie, start with you on a vote on this.
Aye.
Okay, Mark, we'll go to you next.
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item number 17. We do expect to see those beautiful buildings by this time next year.
We'll be there. Thanks.
We'd now like to go on to item number 17, which is a public hearing to approve the street connection general plan update, amending the Orem City General Plan, Orem State Street Master Plan, Orem Transportation Master Plan, and the Orem Street Connection Master Plan pertaining to future street connections near State Street, and amending Section 17-4-6 and 22-14-20D of the City Code, and enacting Section 17-4-8 and 22-14-20S of the City Code to facilitate corridor preservation for these streets. And Jason Bench is our presenter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just to give you a little background, we have been working with UDOT to do a corridor agreement as far as these accesses go. So we have been actually working with UDOT with this plan that we've presented tonight. They are in a tentative agreement as we work through the agreement with this access along State Street. As mentioned by the mayor, these are adjusting the four different general plans, the general plan, the transportation master plan, the State Street master plan, and the street connection master plan. The purposes behind that is to reduce travel time, to lower speeds, reduce accident rates. If you look at our the last neighborhood plan that we had on 1600 North, there was a lot of accidents on 16th and State. Because there's limited access on those major corridors, this would be an option or the ability for them to increase connectivity and hopefully reduce traffic as we go forward. Provide greater flexibility for emergency vehicles, and provide more retail frontage. So those are kind of the basic reasons why we're proposing that, in addition to getting more connectivity along State Street. And overall, this goes from 1700 North, and this is north is to the side of the screen, all the way down to 1400 South. You can see the red outline the potential connections. Future roundabouts are in orange, future signals in green, and the removing signals. All this is coordinated in our access agreement with UDOT, which will be outlined by agreement. Give you a closer view from 1700 North down to Center Street, and then going south. These are access points or street connections that will be done at the time of redevelopment. The city does not have an intention of going in and making these connections, condemning properties or anything at this point. It's all getting the plan in place so that when redevelopment occurs, we can get these cross connections to improve connectability along State Street and Orem Boulevard. I can go through each of the sections if you'd like, but the main thing is to update the subdivision that specifically outlines corridor preservation, and then also adding the map and some verbiage in each of those separate master plans in order to allow us the ability to work with developers to get those cross connections and the corridor preservation. Any questions that I can address at this point?
Councilmember Lentz.
So we discussed a few of these in the pre-meeting, but just to reiterate, and you pointed out that the goal is not for the city to be, demolitioning any buildings and putting these roads in now, but just to provide a master plan in the long term, so as development occurs. So my first question is the threshold of what would trigger that. So if a business has a building that's currently on that spot and they wanted to put solar panels on their roof, for example, I think you need to get a permit to do that in most cases. So my understanding is that wouldn't necessarily trigger, we're not going to block you putting solar panels because that doesn't necessarily change the nature of the building and where it's positioned.
Correct.
But is that 10% change, is that a hard, fast number, or is it just kind of a general guideline that if the redevelopment would somehow impact that corridor,
It's under the site plan requirements, so it's in an ordinance in the actual site plan requirements that if a property chooses to add on to their building over that threshold or demolish the building and rebuild, then that throws them into the current standards. If they simply want to repaint the building, or they want to put new stucco on it, or they want to add any type of thing that wouldn't add square footage to the building, they could do that without meeting these standards. It's only if they want to add to over and above the minimum threshold that would throw them into the new category, meeting the new standards, then that would trigger this requirement, and we would have the ability to get that corridor preservation.
So it's possible even if they were putting up, sorry, Steve, did you want to?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that, like Jason said, that 10% threshold is typically what we look at for when they have to bring the site up to current standards. But it's very possible, for example, if you've got an existing building and somebody wanted to add a 10 or 20% addition that was not in the corridor area, nothing would be triggered. Mm-hmm. So it's only really what we're looking at is if somebody wanted to build something in that corridor area and the city said, hey, look, that's an area that we want a future connector street in there. We want to be able to preserve that and not have you build in that particular area. It gives us the option to stop them from building in that corridor preservation area, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen that way. So it's just, be looked on it on a case-by-case basis.
So if someone was going to put in a small storage shed that equated to, say, 2%.
It would not trigger.
Well,
unless it's
theoretically, even if they wanted to put a little shed in the corridor preservation area, theoretically you could say, no, we don't want that in there. We probably wouldn't care because usually that's not a real, big expense to move it or demolish it. But theoretically, we wouldn't want anything to be constructed in that corridor because you want it to be preserved. The idea is you don't want a property owner to go in and make a lot of really expensive improvements that if the city ever does put in a road, you've got to pay for those improvements. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to sort of preserve it in its existing state, if you will.
So my second question relates to, I'm glad you have this up on the screen, some of these roads that would be connecting in with State Street, do we anticipate that a majority or a portion of those might be right turn only as it's coming into State Street? Because I know because that's a state road, that's one of the concerns that comes up is how many intersections do you have kind of interrupting the flow of that road. So do we anticipate a lot of those would be right turn only intersections?
Yeah, going forward, obviously we're doing this agreement with UDOT, and there will be a safety study that there possibly could be in the future medians. Mm-hmm. So most likely a lot of these turns will be right in, right out.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Seastrand.
Thank you. I think along the lines of what we were talking about, the idea of having the master plan is that we're kind of putting a stake in the ground to say these are areas that we see happening long-term down the road. We don't initiate the changes, but when changes are possible, we look at it to the master plan. But we also can make changes to the master plan as well. If some of these, as the detail of development comes around, we can also modify the master plan as we're looking at specific detailed developments. Is that true?
Yes, it could always be modified, absolutely.
Okay, so if a developer said, hey, this is what I really want to do, and makes a petition to modify the master plan or the street master plan, we would certainly be in the position to hear that and be able to address that and see if that makes sense.
Correct. It would go through this process.
So I think the key aspect of this is that we're not requiring anyone to do anything right now. We're just saying if you're looking for the development in these particular corridors, we'd like to have the discussion. We'd like to look at it. Our current plan is this is how this will develop over the long term of the development of the State Street and the Orem Boulevard plan.
This is a long term. Obviously, we're looking 30, 40 years down the road. This is something as we introduce these districts that we're going to, enter the 5 districts on State Street. We need to have the ability to have these interconnections. And right now, based on our master plans and things, we really can't force them to do that or encourage them to do. We can encourage, but we can't really have the ability to get the streets where we want to in coordination with UDOT and others. This gives us that ability to work with the property owner, have a little more teeth so that we can get these interconnectivities as we actually set these districts up. We'll be able to have that interconnective street network, which will be a benefit going forward.
And as each one of these projects comes around in development, then we would do the detailed traffic studies, the whatever agreements we need to with UDOT from a safety standpoint, part of that project.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Sumner?
Yeah, on these roads, are we just talking 2 lanes? Or how big can the...
It would depend on the type of lane or the type of facility that we're wanting, but most likely a 2-lane.
Okay, like 4 south or 8th?
Probably not as big as those. Probably, parking on perpendicular parking or parallel parking, excuse me, with lanes and some street.
And how far from that red line do you bleed into the neighboring businesses? I mean, this is pretty well where you want it.
Well, part of the entry and exit are probably fairly pinpointed based on this plan. The actual line itself is not probably as straight as it's going to be. I mean, we could meander and do different things depending on how the developer wants to develop. But the connection points are what we're wanting to have.
Okay. Can I add to that? So, yeah, I think like Jason said, this is basically the area you want to have them in, but there could be some deviation, 5, 10, 15, 20 feet, depending on what works best for the developer and also what helps to minimize the cost, potentially for the city, because the city likely is going to have to pay some compensation when you require a developer to preserve the corridor and not put buildings on there. So that would mean we obviously would want to put it in a location that disrupts the owner of the property to the minimum extent possible and takes out as few improvements as possible as well.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit about this question. I'm going to ask you in the pre-meeting, but that area off 4 South, it goes from, I don't have that in front of me, but it goes through onto the boulevard, and then it goes on to I think it's a farm or orchard. If that owner wants to develop that, can you kind of play out what you would do? Or
yeah, typically what happens is the owner comes in and meets with staff to kind of talk about what kind of development they want to have there, where they want to put their buildings and parking and things like that. At that point, we'd look at it and say, oh, that there's this area here where we want to preserve a corridor or put the corridor in, probably more likely at that point, and work with the developer to situate their buildings and parking so that it doesn't interfere with that corridor area.
And that'd be city's expense?
Well, in a situation like this where you're talking about undeveloped land, probably it's going to be partly on the developer and partly on the city as well. I mean, it just depends on how much the development of the property is contributing to the need for that particular street and how much, proportionate share of the traffic they're putting on that street. So that would have to all be analyzed at the time.
Okay. One more question, and I know this is down the road, could be 30 years, 20 years. In the ordinance, it states, I mean, none of us will probably be around when a lot of this happens, or at least I won't. Anyway, it says the city may prohibit or limit construction or installation of improvements in the corridor preservation area in order to preserve such an area for the construction of streets. That, I know what everybody's saying here, but 10 years from now with a new attorney and whatnot and new city council, they'll interpret that as, well, we have to live by that ordinance and we can demand what you do.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm addressing your question, but it does say may prohibit or limit the construction. It doesn't say we have to do that. So I think that when, again, somebody comes with a proposed development, if they're proposing to put a building in that corridor area, and we think this is really important to preserve, we would say, we really don't want you to do that. Can you move your building somewhere else, reconfigure it on the lot? And if they say no, and we still insist upon it, then we have to pay them compensation for that. So at fair market value for the property.
Yeah, I'm for the State Street plan. There's no question there, but I also want to protect our business owners that some's invested millions of dollars. And
so yeah, we don't get to force them to set aside that property for free. If they're losing the ability to use that property for buildings, we have to pay them for that. It's a taking. We have to essentially buy that property from them at fair market value so that they're made whole.
Okay, thank you.
So a question for you, Jason, on, on the view of the roads. You have some roads going across State Street without lights, going across University Parkway without lights. Basically, are you saying the street goes up to the parkway? And as an example, down here next to the mall from 1200 South, and then goes on the other side of the parkway and there's no crossing there? Is that what you're saying?
Most likely would be a right in, right out. There would not be an intersection. It's just basically stating that they would probably line up, but there probably wouldn't be the ability to go across.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the council? All right, well, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to the public. Anyone who would like to make a comment, please come forward and hold your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. Seeing that no one's coming forward, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any comments or questions from the council? Okay, I would like to go ahead and make a motion then that by ordinance, the City Council amend the Orem City General Plan, Orem State Street Master Plan, Orem Transportation Master Plan, and the Orem Street Connection Master Plan pertaining to future street connections near State Street, and amend Section 17-4-6 and 22-14-20D of the City Code, and enact Section 17-4-8 and 22-14-20S of the City Code to facilitate corridor preservation for these streets. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll start with Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And Councilmember Larray?
Aye.
Okay. The ordinance passes. Thank you, Jason. We'll move on to item number 18, which is deep lot development standards. This is a public hearing on an ordinance amending Section 17-8-1C7 of the Orem City Code pertaining to residential deep lot development standards. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a simple amendment to allow two-story homes on deep lots to be expanded. In March of 2007, the council passed a motion that prohibited deep lot homes to be more than 1 story, 27 feet. We have, prior to that, many homes on deep lots that were 2 stories. We had an applicant come in and request that he has an addition, but because of the ordinance in place, we would not allow him to expand his 2-story home. This is why he's coming in. If he meets the setbacks, any 2-story home prior to that date could expand as long as they met the 25-foot setbacks on the 2, and then the additional side yard setbacks with the underlying zone. So if it was an R8, they would have to have the minimum side yard setbacks of that zone. The existing ordinance that requires a 15-foot or 15,000 square foot size lot to have 2 stories is still in place. We're just relocating it under number A. So that's the change. I'll be glad to address any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for anyone who would like to make a comment. Please hold your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. Seeing that no one's coming forward, we'll close the public comment of this public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any comments or questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Move that we amend Section 17-8-1C7 of the Orem City Code pertaining to residential deep lot development standards.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with Councilmember Larray.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Seastrand.
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passed. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Now move on to a resolution, item 19. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the cooperative agreement between the City of Orem and the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands regarding the participation commitment to wildland prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. Chief Scott Gurney is our presenter.
Thank you, Mayor Brunston, council members. As you are keenly aware, as you look at the news, we are already in the wildland fire season. And this time of year is always an anxious time for us as we look to the east, our east bench, and worry about what may happen during these hot, dry summer months. So as we talk and just review with you from our work session, the legislature and the governor mandated or requested, directed the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands to come up and coordinate and develop a comprehensive statewide wildland fire policy. And in this effort, it is to help and coordinate every town, city, and county government agency to participate. They don't have to participate in it, but it gives them a vehicle to participate in this policy plan that will enable them as they have these catastrophic wildland events in their area. It doesn't decimate the local budget in trying to pay for those significant events. Now, this policy that was developed has gone out to every, like I said, town, city, and county agency, where they have the opportunity to participate in this cooperative agreement. And this is ours, the City of Orem, and the information that I'll provide to you is how that policy interacts with our community. So way the state directs is that we can participate in the wildland prevention. That will include our budget, what we do with the city. Wildland preparedness will be a local budget issue, and the wildland suppression. That's a state budget issue regarding excluding any type of initial fire attack. As mentioned previously, whenever our crews are dispatched to a wildland event, we'll respond with our brush trucks and our fire personnel, and we will immediately and aggressively attack that to mitigate that as quickly as possible. And all of that falls upon the budget of our community. But in the event that that gets out of hand, we will quickly bring in our partners from the county, and as the county warden dictates, we'll bring in our partners from the state. And even if in that process, as we are fighting that fire, if they have to bring in any additional resources, i.e. aircraft, which you're fully aware can cause an enormous amount of money into the millions of dollars, that cost will not be passed on to us if we enter into this agreement and participate in this, in our participation commitments. And these are the three basic areas: the prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. Now, the state forestry and fire and state lands, they mandate how much of our participation falls into these three areas. And in the mitigation portion of it requires 50%, and then in the preparedness, it can, and those can go up to the 100%, but those are the minimums required as we work with the state lands. Trent Bristol from the state, we'll work with them in developing a coordinated plan of what we can do to help our community, to educate our community, to be more aware of our surroundings, help us to be better prepared to prevent these type of events, and also to be ready as a department and also as a community in case we do have a event that either starts in our community. And here's the map of our community, and this is indicates in red the way they assess our participation agreement or dollar amount is based upon two things, and that's based upon a 10-year average of cost, throwing out the highest cost and the lowest cost, and the other is by a Utah risk assessment, and that's based upon these areas in our community, and they're based upon low, medium, and high. Our high areas, which is in red, makes up of 7%, which causes our assessment to go up. And as you see here, it'll tell you where, based upon that assessment, the acreage that we are involved in and what our participation commitment is, which is only $3,163. Now, that is not anything that we pay to the state. It's what we, as a city and as the state forestry, state lands, we come up with an agreement of what we will do to help mitigate these type of things in prevention and suppression and those types of activities. So basically our goal is to impact public safety through wildfire prevention and preparedness, and to reduce wildfires, and really to secure our interface, our urban interface. We will aggressively protect that interface where our homes border on our the wildland side of it, so to speak, and it helps us to better make sure that our community is safe. And so we'll work explicitly with the state, and they'll help us as we ultimately want to make this guy right here very happy. We have a wonderful community, and as we look to the east, it's something that we fondly can go up and enjoy. The last thing we don't want to do is to have a catastrophic fire where that ruins that pristine area for years. So is there any questions that you have regarding this cooperative agreement?
So I have a question. If we have $3,100 we are to spend, and 51% is on mitigation, what would your recommendations be towards the spending of that money?
So that dollar amount is what we will calculate, and we can come up with a plan. One of the things that we will do is obviously every year at this time, our big concern is fireworks. And as you've known in years past, we spend time up on that area putting up signs and going and talking to neighbors and hanging door hangers and basically educating the people. And that would all those man hours would, if approved by the state, which in talking with Trent they do, will go towards that cooperative match.
Okay.
And so there's things that we can do with the community in helping them to with their xeriscaping or doing some type of landscaping, education, and there's different things that we can interact with the public.
So would you send someone up along the eastern interface who might walk the area and see where there's been too much overgrowth and maybe there needs to be some clearing, some of those things?
So I think what we'll do in our plan is we've looked at this is we want to work with our city partners in the community, those that know the area and are aware of the topography. And we will also have interaction with the state forestry and lands to look at those isolated areas that we may feel like that we need to go in and do some brush removal or some type of mitigation with that.
Okay. Councilmember Lenz.
So first off, I wish our health insurance worked this way, where you do a couple healthy activities and then that wipes out your health insurance premium. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but I am just curious with that 3,000 amount, about what portion of that would you consider we already have covered with our existing activities, and how much of it is incrementally new activities that we would engage in?
The mitigation portion of it will be new. We'll need to do that. Our fire prevention week, or that fire prevention day that we do, that is already been approved for counting towards this match. So we will sit down and strategically identify things that we can do that will help us in what we're doing already. One of the things that we're planning is wildland fire training for our firefighters. As you well know, all of our certified structural firefighters. So we'll have a basic wildland fire training that our firefighters will all go through. All of that becomes will go towards that match.
And to your department's credit, my understanding is one of the reasons this is so low is because of our track record with, being effective in what your department does already. So
I think
hats off to you guys.
So thank you very much. I think as a community, we've done very well. And as you've looked at the information that I provided to you, that 10-year, the cost that has been zero. The community has done very well, and our firefighters have done extremely well in going up and identifying. They do training up there. They'll go up and stretch forest lines and do those things that help them to be ready to quickly and effectively mitigate those types of situations, which can be very stressful and very difficult.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the council? I do remember, as you do, a forest fire that occurred actually 20 years ago that came over the top of the hill, and coming home one night and getting a call from my wife that we needed to get a fire line organized, which we did. We got 300 people out with picks and shovels and built an entire fire line, and the fire stopped right at that fire line because your fire crews did a back burn at that fire line, and we saved a whole line, a couple miles of houses.
And I think that it's that same type of community involvement that we want to foster well in advance, to where we can make sure that area is safe from not only having a fire start from our side of the fence, so to speak, but having it start in another community or from another area and then start coming towards our community, where we have to worry about our interface with, as it interfaces with our community.
Good.
You ready for a motion, Mayor?
I'm ready for a motion.
I move that the City Council by resolution authorize the mayor to sign the cooperative agreement between the City of Orem and the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Land as part of the comprehensive statewide wildlife fire prevention, preparedness, and suppression policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'd like to start with Councilmember Luray.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Seastrand?
Aye.
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 Okay, the resolution passes. Thank you, Chief Gurney. Appreciate it. Appreciate your good works. We'd now like to move on to item number 20, which is a public hearing. This is an enterprise fund hearing to consider public input on the proposed transfer of funds from the enterprise funds to cover general fund utility costs over and above administrative and overhead costs. Our presenter is Richard Manning and Brandon Nelson.
Mayor and Council, appreciate this opportunity. As you're well aware, and I'm serious this time, this is the single most important thing that you do in a year. However, it's fairly boring, but it puts everything together, so we'll start laying it out. From this, we'll spring into the budget, but we need to have an enterprise fund transfer hearing first. This is new. new requirement per state legislation this year. And we're going to explain something we have always done and the process we've done to keep overall expense of living in Orem as cheap as we can. So we'll go through this. The city provides to everyone who lives here, does business here, including city-owned properties, the basic utilities of life: water, sewer, storm drainage, street lighting, etc. And we have to charge ourselves the retail cost of our the utilities and when I say we, Orem City Corporation, the utilities that we consume, and the same rate that we would anyone else. And since we have a tiered water structure now, at the same tier, and we have some mighty large properties we have to keep green. So we will go through this process, and we have three choices. Because we have to show the movement of money, we could either raise taxes and have the general fund pay the utilities, or we could lower services that the general fund provides and pay the utilities, or we do the transfer. And since we've opted to do the transfer, we send the money to them, transfer it back, and it shows on paper how the money flowed, and everybody receives the same services they have always received for the same prices. The parks stay green, and we keep all the police, fire, everyone else busy as we have before.
So, Richard, that's basically a sum zero transfer, and it does not increase taxes, and it does not decrease services.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. We send it out to every utility customer, thank you, in the city, this notice, so they could look over and see how much we're sending. For example, the water, $900,000 in water. It represents 4.9% of their fund, and it's going to the general fund because we have actually built it into the rates so that we don't have, because who pays property taxes? The people who live here. Who pays for the water? The people who live here. If we can do it for where one price essentially covers all the costs, why wouldn't we do that? To keep the overall cost of living here a little bit lower. That's what we're attempting to do.
Councilmember McDonald has a comment for you.
This is really for the woman who raised the question earlier. I think Mr. Manning attempted to answer your question. If it wasn't clear, not that I propose that I can explain it any better, but maybe a second time will help. So the city pays for their water from the water fund, and then the water fund gives the money back to the city. So where you were concerned, as I am concerned, that I pay for money on a limited budget perhaps or whatever, the city is a net zero. So we use waters to keep the parks beautiful, to keep the city green and beautiful, and then the water fund pays it back, as does the sewer and storm, but those aren't as significant as it is to water as much land and parks as we have, ma'am. So what we're trying to do is just put the money back into the general fund so we can use it to provide other critical services. That's why you're seeing that transfer that concerned you of $900,000. It's a little bit of accounting confusion, perhaps. Mr. Manning has done well in explaining to us, but he's had to explain it to us multiple times each year over many years. And so I hope that clarifies. If not, I'd be happy to visit with you after this meeting.
So,
Can I comment on that too? I
Yes.
think if you go back to the graph you had, the complaint I have is you're missing half the equation, which is kind of what Tom was saying. There's actually, before the water fund, there's another bubble, and it says general fund pays water bill into the water fund, and then the water fund refunds the money back to the general fund. That makes it then easy.
That's the sheet he's going to.
yeah.
So I just want to get credit for it.
We have to, thank you.
Took 10 years to learn that.
And as these bullet points come up, just keep talking. So we pay for what we use, and it is a payment that goes in there. It shows in their revenues.
We're required by the state to do that.
Yes, we are. And these are the amounts for the different funds. Street lighting.
So we're a customer just like anybody else.
We are a customer of our city. And then this transfer brings it back so that we haven't artificially raised rates anywhere. We've kept it all the same.
Councilmember Lentz has a comment.
So I'm just kind of thinking out loud, and I haven't really, I haven't thought through this very carefully, so this might be a foolish idea, but with the water that we're providing to parks and different facilities throughout the city, do we take, with our tiered rate structure, depending on the size of the meter for each of those parks or building, and I'm sure some of the facilities probably have multiple water connections, do we kind of take the sum of every one of those metered connections and then add the tier on top of that? Would it be as if each one of those parks or buildings was its own utility customer, and then the total amount is just the sum of that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'm wondering if it would be a good idea or a bad idea to consider having a separate tiered rate structure for city facilities. So rather than treating each one separately with its own tier, do we have a municipal tier structure that we just treat it all as one?
We have to charge the retail rate. So whatever you and I pay as residents, we have to charge ourselves.
Even
as if we were a resident or a business.
Even though we're essentially one customer across all these different, okay. Thank you.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, now the legislation requires we go into a little bit more detail about the finances of these funds, and we'll go through that. So the revenues for each of the funds, as you see going across the top, water, sewer, storm, and street light. The sales of service are the user fees, other fees that we collect. The large one you see in water, that's primarily if someone has had their late fees, etc. Connection fees for new construction, interest that they earn, contributions that come from other funds into it. And then we'll go into some of these a little bit more detail. We track on a macro level the way we do all things personnel, operations, and capital for these funds. And then looking a little bit more detail at the operations side and the personnel side. Here's the major expense categories going into a little bit more depth. Now, we need to specifically touch upon the administrative and transfer information. So there's an administrative charge for each of the utilities, and that essentially is overhead, since the general fund area provides a lot of services for these funds, and they don't pay taxes, which they normally would be paying. So they are charged a fee, and they are part of us. And if you cannot directly bill someone's time, for example, Jamie's time, you can't say that 12% of his time is dedicated to water. You can't say that. It may be all of his time for 2 or 3 days in a row, and then nothing for a few days or a few weeks even. But there will always be some demand on his time, and that goes the same for Brandon, myself, the attorneys, a lot of people, but there are some who it's very specific that they give, you can define it. These funds use our warehouse, and they use IT, and they use risk management, and they're charged according to their utilization. Then there's the transfers. You see the transfer fee returned the $900,000. That's what we're talking about, and so on and so forth. There are contracted services that these funds have. Now, the largest one of all is we buy our water, and that's a pretty big contract. So that's $3.4 million. But there are other things where some internal services, they would make no money if it weren't billed, and that billing is performed by someone else. Bless you. There's secretarial, there's engineering, things that they would be getting on their own, but we supply them in-house, but bill them the cost of it.
Richard, one thing I'd like to add into all of this is that we have some other customers that you haven't mentioned. We have customers outside of the city. So for the city of Vineyard, we sell them some of their water. We also treat some of their sewage. And we don't do that for free. We charge them for it. And that's included in the revenues that come in.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that's clear, that some people have thought that some of the services we provide to other cities is free to them. It is not free. We do charge them just like any other customer.
Yeah. Yeah. These are operated like businesses. So that takes us through the things we need to cover. Are there any questions? That's the end of our
Councilmember Lentz?
Could you go back to the slide that had the line for surplus at the bottom? One more, I think, or two more. Right there.
Yep.
So I think it would be a fair question if you're looking at this on the surface to say, well, if we're running a surplus on all these funds, then why do we necessarily even need to go through this circular transaction? But this surplus, these surplus funds, these are being set aside for capital projects that are on our master planning for the next several years. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Well, I want to, without getting too accounting on, going all accounting on you. So these surpluses that you see here actually represent the use of those prior surpluses, because we now bring it in as a revenue source in the year that you use that surplus.
Okay.
So that's what.
Okay, you're going too.
I know.
We save some money to buy a section of water line.
So this is
and
revenue.
Have the money for the water line, and
that's the difference.
We're taking it out of our piggy bank and putting it in here.
This is
shows it.
You have other surplus here. This is revenue coming in from that surplus.
Right.
Yep. This is a revenue information sheet.
And this money is not being saved. That's really the thing I wanted to clarify. This is use of, not
Okay. Thank you. And I just wanted to thank Norma for coming and sharing, because I know you're not the only one that has the same concern in our community. And so in a way, you're kind of a voice for lots of others in our community that share that same concern. And as this is a public hearing, if you have additional questions, we would certainly welcome those as well.
Okay.
So now, I guess
that's all you've got?
Hearing. And with this public hearing, you need take no action.
Correct. But it is a public hearing. Any comments further from the council? So we will go ahead and open this up to the public. Anyone who would like to make a comment is welcome to do so. Keep their comments to 3 minutes, and please give us your name. Yes, if you'd like to come up to the podium, please.
Sorry to be such a pain, but.
Please give us your name.
Norma Farley. I know water is expensive, but is there any reclamation projects going on that can supply reclaimed water and thereby cutting down expenses?
So we are doing a project whereby we're using what you'd call reclaimed or gray water from our water treatment plant to water our golf course over at Sleepy Ridge, and we're putting in the infrastructure, capital infrastructure to do that. So that will save about 1 million gallons a day of water, culinary water, treated water that would normally come from our water tanks up on the hill. And that water will not be going to the golf course anymore. So yes, we are pursuing that.
Good.
Saving 1 million gallons a day. Okay, are there any other comments? Seeing that there are no further comments, we'll close the public comment portion of our public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any questions or comments? Okay. Well, we have held a public hearing to consider the input, and I believe that meets our obligation.
Yep.
Thank you very much. You two get to stay right there, so we'll go on to item number 21. This is a public hearing to adopt the final budget of fiscal year 2017 and 18. This is an ordinance approving and adopting a budget for fiscal year 2017-18, adopting compensation programs, fees, charges, setting the property tax, the franchise tax, municipal energy sales and use tax, the telecommunications license tax, the transit room tax, and the E-911 fee rates. And we'll turn the time over to Richard Manning and Brandon Nelson.
Okay, just a reminder, this is a $112 million budget. It is the largest the city has ever had. We'll get into how much of that is ongoing. To this point, we've gone through these steps. There have been a series of meetings where everything in here has been laid on the table. Everyone's had a chance who wanted to take a look at it. And we include the public hearing we just had. And as you can tell from the picture on the screen, it's probably wasn't taken during a budget meeting because there's so many people in the audience compared, relatively speaking. The highlights, there are no tax increases. There are some positions in the budget.
So are you saying there are no property tax increases?
No.
There's no sales tax increases? No franchise tax increases?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, you know, the things necessary to keep the city going will be included here and some capital projects. As you look at it over the years, you can see how the city has grown over the last several years. The revenues at the top, that is the ongoing money stream, so 91.3 is what we can count on year to year. The transfers are money moving back and forth, and the appropriation surplus is taking money that has previously been accumulated to spend on capital projects.
Do we have any new bond debt?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Back with debt, we're going the other way. These next two screens go over the funds that we have, the revenues, the transfers in, if any, appropriation of surplus. As you can see, the appropriation surplus is by and large with the enterprise funds, and that's for capital projects. And if you wonder, okay, why don't we put in some sort of semblance of order? This is just the order they are accounting-wise. And not by other than, we all know general fund's most important. But just wonder if they were going to hit me.
Could you go back one page quickly?
I can.
Thank you.
We good? These funds are the lower ones. What's missing here is street lighting because that's not part of the city budget. It's a special service district, and we'll get to that towards the end of the evening. The general fund is what most people believe to be the city. And you can see the same looking at the revenues over time. We rarely will appropriate surplus in the general fund. We used to do it all the time. But we've grown in our fiscal strength to the point that we're funding things like our fleet replacement and with ongoing funding. That used to always be an appropriation of surplus.
So we're showing almost $5.5 million of increased revenues over a 4-year period there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The main sources are taxes, that's property sales, franchise tax, etc. Building fees are a significant source of income. However, we very deliberately budget them low so that we're not building operations on what essentially are one-time monies. And we use the part of building fees that we've determined to be recurring over time. Sales tax this year, we're looking at $21 million.
So we're up $2.5 million over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
On sales tax.
Sales tax are going well. You reach an end where you know it will cease to grow as quickly. Percentage-wise, we don't grow as quickly as we did, but that's really hard to keep growing when you have as much money as we do. Down the bottom here.
Isn't it $1.5 million from 16 to 18?
Yep. Yeah.
So 19.4 to 21.
It's $1.5 million, not $2.5 million.
Correct. Sorry.
Just trying to correct our financial office.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need it all the time. Our public safety contracts, you mentioned that we supply utilities to our neighboring cities of Linden and Vineyard. We also do some public safety, and also with Alpine School District, and we are paid for those. And property tax, when we held this in May, we didn't have our numbers. We didn't have the numbers until Monday. But the county has determined that we'll receive $5.132 million in general property tax money. That's exclusive of money that goes into debt, and it's exclusive of, that'll be new money. So it's exclusive of late fees, et cetera. We had budgeted 5.1, and I'm very glad it's 32,000 on the upside instead of the opposite way. But the rate down here at the bottom is 1346. This chart here will show over the last 10 years how this rate has changed, essentially giving us the same amount of money plus giving us the growth. And you can see in fiscal 13 is when we most deeply felt the impact of the recession. And so to keep the same amount of money, the rates go up. Now that the economy is doing better, you can see the rate is diving down. It's also because a general obligation bond has dropped off. And that also keeps the rate down because there's no longer going to be about, I don't know, 450,000 that we won't need.
So I think our bond debt's gone down about 22 million over the last 4 years.
We're, I want to say 69 to 45 when you look at everything with the exception of Utopia.
That's pretty close to,
yeah,
a little more than 22.
Yeah, just under 27% drop in the value. This is a comparison of how we are with our utilities and the property tax one. I really debated cutting this one out because the property tax is our old rate. And it takes quite a bit to bring this up to date, but this is our proposed rates against the city's existing rates. And presuming that many of them will be adjusting rates too. You can see.
So they all are having to adjust rates due to the law passed last year to conserve water. So this is not a fair comparison at the moment, but it is a comparison.
But I think we're still going to look about the same place. Even though our property tax right now would put us right in that area, everyone else will be kind of shifting a little bit too. By citywide, you can see $43 million. That's the personnel costs. Operations are 52. And it's because the reason operations are so high is we have to buy water. And that's a big chunk. And Public Works has a large operating budget. That's why that's larger than personnel. Many of the operating departments, personnel is by and large the biggest cost they have. And in some departments, the only significant cost that they have. And we're pleased with the capital amount, and we need to make concerted efforts to keep replenishing the things that we own.
One thing I wanted to mention, I was with the mayor of Tremont earlier in the day at the Economic Development Corporation Advisory Board meeting, and he's saying that his biggest problem is getting enough water for their community. They're basically a manufacturing community as far as industry goes, and they're having a real problem supplying their water needs. And I was going to say, thankful to the Metropolitan Water Board and our water managers of years ago who have made it possible for us to have a strong supply of water for our city. Councilor McDonald has a question.
I think, Brandon, you're going to be the one that will answer this best, or maybe quickest. The question for you is, our budget's gone up a little bit from $100 million to $112 million this year. How much of that is because of transfers from our rainy day funds now to pay for capital improvements? Some will look at this and say we had a 12% increase, but I know we're moving items from in various funds to pay for improvements, capital stuff. Is this it? Is this your answer? See that it's a relatively large increase. It's 11.5 million, 11.6. How much of that is for capital improvements that we're moving around? Do you know that answer, or can you get it to me?
I can get it to you. I don't know off the top of my head. Now, it shouldn't be a large portion of this. As you can see from that chart, the revenue component, which that top line are recurring revenues, that means we're receiving it. We've budgeted,
So our recurring revenues are going up by $8 million. What's doing that? Or 7.5.
What is causing that?
Yeah. Sales tax is up about $1 million.
Water, sewer, storm.
So those are going to pay for capital improvements, is what I'm saying, some of those.
But I guess what I see too is we're actually appropriating surplus
of 2.5
that we have had over time to dedicate to these projects.
Right.
Yeah, so in answer, I mean, off the top of my head, I would say really that 2.5 million, that wouldn't normally have been there in a normal.
The 2.5, I understand that, yeah. But there's part of that 91 that is also these things to pay for capital improvements.
Sure, in relation to rate increases that we have budgeted.
Right.
In relation.
And I'm trying to find out how much of it's total capital. And I put you in a tough spot. I should have asked you that question before this meeting. But it'd be important to me to say, okay, last year our budget only went up by $3 million or 3.5. This year it's going up by $11.5 million. I hope a big chunk of that is for capital improvements, not for just operations. And I think the public has a right to know, okay, yeah, we're going up by $11.5 million, but we're spending 10 of it on capital improvements. We're not just kicking the can down the road as we did for many years by not making those improvements.
I mean, so I'm glad Richard brought this up because I can give you the exact numbers, at least, but those capital items you see there, particularly the top three anyway, a large portion of those amounts is exactly what you're
And I'm just trying to get a number versus a large portion. So get us a number, okay? Thank you.
So you're basically $11.5 million for capital improvements over the last 24 months, 12 to 24 months. And I think that's important to notate. Our revenues are up, but these capital improvements are important things that we're trying to accomplish in the city to keep our capital infrastructure in good condition.
So Mayor, if I may, too, as we move down the road, as we head into fiscal year 19, fiscal year 20, there could be the possibility that our budget would be less than it is currently today, but in fiscal year 21, we're budgeting for a significant infrastructure project. It's $10 million, and then all of a sudden the number bumps up again. So this isn't a representation of just incremental growth over the years, right, but it's timed according to when we anticipate the completion and construction of projects.
Yeah. Okay, city, by their funds, here are the expenditures as we go through. What is not as detailed as the revenue one. But then the departmental stewardship. Each department has stewardship that sometimes spans several funds. And so departments that have relatively small personnel bases can have very large budgets because their stewardship is fairly significant from a dollar point of view. Now, the additions here, we're headed into, we want to make sure people know what we're doing, and we want to, because a lot of times we have a lot going on and you find out nobody knew anything about it. So trying to get the word out, and that's what you have wanted us to do, and that's what the residents have expected us to do. And we're setting aside a little bit of money each year for the centennial coming up. It'll only happen once in our lifetime that we'll be around for something like that. City manager's department, that's where the outreach will be managed. Development services, or want to have some money to model and make sure people are giving the information we get from a developer's engineer is correct, so we can verify it from a third-party point of view. And a really big step forward is the paperless plan review, so you could submit development plans digitally, and that'll be a big boon going forward. Police, a few things with some vehicle radar, that'll be an ongoing project, and then they have some software needs that are being met in this. Fire, again, training as buildings get taller, they have to know how to approach that type of fire differently. And, stretchers, and they need to renew their ability to have a physician who's contracted, and that cost is going to go up a little bit. Library, moving over to an RFID, getting a new wand, and then keeping things going. In Public Works, we've added park space. And with that, you have to maintain it, because that's one of the commitments you've given us, maintain the assets that the city has. There's always fleet We cover 18 and a half square miles, which is a good size for us. It's not large. I mean, good by it's nice and manageable. It's not overly large. But if we can't get from point A to point B, it's pretty hard to do our job. A series of existing personnel adjusting, making some changes in the type of employment they have, like moving some from part to full-time, doing some little adjustments of jobs. Here, this one ultimately ends up with through a series of promotion, an entry-level firefighter. But both fire and police will get an assistant chief, and then there's some existing jobs, their grades will be changed. There'll be some non-benefited new positions added, a communications assistant, or otherwise known as a town crier, a couple of custodians to keep up with the workload, and I think that is Elton John's brother. He has applied. And economic development assistant, and then an increase to our non-benefited employees. There's a series of benefited new jobs will be there: assistant city attorney, 2 police officers, a public works tech for the parks and tech for water, and then a stormwater project manager. This position is mandated by evolving stormwater regulations. Moving into capital projects with our streets, one of the things.
Go back one. So just looking at the merit increases and so you got about a 1.3 million in terms of
overall change,
overall wage increases. Does that include the new positions?
That's everything. Yeah, okay. That's everything.
Thank you.
Okay. In the capital projects and the streets work, what's the value of our streets? It's huge. Okay. Keeping up with that is a significant chore. And we are moving an additional 200,000 through streets, or excuse me, through solid waste because of the added wear and tear they have. So we're charging them for the wear and tear on our streets.
And I believe that we have an additional 400,000 to 500,000 coming in
through gas tax.
Through the gas tax from the state per year.
And still short. If there were another way to get some more money, they would be very needed because we're not keeping up. Point you want to make.
By how far? I mean, so what's the cost versus the revenue on that?
Reed, what are we short? I want to say at this point, a few hundred a year.
It's about $1 million a year. Right now, our gas tax monies are used to maintain the arterials and collectors, and we don't do very much on the local roads. So we do the crack seals and slurry coats on those to extend the life as long as possible, but we can't do that forever. So right now we concentrate on overlays on a 24 rotating period on our collectors and arterials, and that's what we have funding for. And on occasion we find money to be able to put towards local roads. But if we were to go on a 36-year rotating cycle for, maybe it's 30-ish year rotating cycle for local roads, we would need about $1 million a year right now.
More than what we have.
Correct.
So I had Proposition 1 passed in our county, as it did in Davis County a year and a half ago. We would be receiving an additional $1.7 million a year for the city of Orem. Anyway, just
Reed would smile.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One of our capable people from the city manager's office has answered my question. Last year, we had budgeted to spend $9.5 million in capital improvements. This year, $16.5 million. So the increase is $7 million in capital budget items. So for those looking at a pretty large increase, know that well over half of that number is going for capital improvements to make sure that our infrastructure is prepared for the future. Now, you can question where the other money is, and that's a separate cut and dice, but at least $7 million of it, or $17 million in total, but $7 million increase is going for additional capital improvements. So FYI, or answering your question for the record while we're still together.
So of that 7, 2 is pulling out of our savings, if you will, and 5 would be new. We have some water system projects coming on. in the Emery Avenue area. We're always working over there. The 4-inch water line replacements, and then various systems replacement, a new well, and the water reuse system, which was asked about in the previous public hearing, of taking water instead of just dumping it straight into Utah Lake, and we'll send it over, treat it, send it to the golf course. And then automatic meter infrastructure, which will facilitate more accurate reads. On the water reclamation side, here are the major projects they have there, and this will be, Lawrence Burton's been a fixture. This is the last budget he'll be a part of, and he's leaving in July, so and he will be sorely missed. Been a good man for the city. In stormwater, this is they had to call an audible. They were looking at the West Union Canal down the road, but the owners of it have said that they're getting out of the business. We put some stormwater in there and we need to get it out. So they'll be changing some of their plans so that we can get out of that, or have some plan to deal with it as quickly as possible. Because if you're putting money into it, or water into it, you have some liability. And if it's not being maintained, that's scary. IT fund, they have, we do a lot of our own software development in-house, so we have a staff, and they do excellent work. And they are a relatively new fund. They've been part of the general fund up until the last couple of years, and they've been separated out. It's a little bit of representation of where they are. And they have a 10-year master plan, and a lot of the increases are more on subscriptions to different softwares that are debt service. Everyone always wants to know how much is going to the Utopia Pledge. It's just under $3.1 million. Principal issuer will pay $3 million, interest $300,000, and then we have some other issues that come through the fund that aren't particularly general fund belonging there. We just run them through the debt service fund to pay for it. Recreation fund. This is a fund, as you can tell, it is subsidized by revenues coming out of the general fund. I find it curious that the legislature makes us address the money that comes from an enterprise fund to the general fund. They don't seem to care if the general fund sends money up the hill to them. And as we've talked in retreats, this is an area the city needs to philosophically map out where we want to go. We're in a position right now where the desire had been that the recreation fund, it's the Sierra outdoor pool and it's the fitness center. They would be self-maintaining, and we're at a point now that's not going to happen. So it's time to set a plan and say, okay, here's how we're going to go about it, and this is what we're going to do funding-wise here on out. They have a large staff. Right now we have about 1,100 people on payroll, and a significant number of them are involved in recreation, from umping games to lifeguards and getting you in and taking care of you at the fitness center. Community development, the CDBG, and in previous ones you've talked about where this goes. Solid waste fund, now they weren't included in transfers because this is handled by a third party. And waste management picks up our garbage for us, and this is just money that's needed to operate this fund. And with that, there'll be some rate increases are proposed. The first can from $10.65 to $10.85. Second can, if you have it, $9.65 to $9.85. Recycling up 5 cents, and a 15-cent increase on the green waste. That would go into effect with the July billing. Water also would have a change. That the tiered rate structure, the majority of residents, users in the city have a 3/4 inch meter. That is the only base rate that will change. It'll go from $15.74 to $17.16, and you can see the tiers will change in that amount. Now the tiered billing charge is the same regardless of the size of the meter, but the amount allowed in each tier changes with the size of the meter. If some of these meters, if you turned them on, you'd be into Tier 4 on a 3/4 inch. For example, the size of the meter that serves UVU. They wouldn't even notice a leak. The size it would put you into Tier 4. So that's adjusted, and as we're now going into our first full year of billing on the tiered side, I think people are seeing, what they can do if they want to adjust their watering habits and keep a green lawn, etc. We were informed that even with our new structure, Provo was so kind to put together this chart, which shows where we are, and we're okay. Even with the rate changes, we still are very favorable as our other look at of our proposed rates versus everyone's current. We're doing okay. With sewer, there would be a change from $1.42 per unit, that's 1,000 gallons, to $1.85. And on stormwater, $6.25 to $6.75. And each single family is considered one equivalent service unit for stormwater. Across the street at Smith's, they are a lot. So it's based on parking lots, rooftop size, etc.
Councilmember Lenz has a question.
Richard, could we just go back one slide? Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So this is, if you take the average of the combined water, sewer, storm, do we have a list of what fees are factored into that from Provo budget staff?
Yeah, so Provo obviously produces power, but they've excluded that. So this is just water, wastewater, garbage, and storm drain, storm sewer.
So if you summed all those up, this is what the average homeowner would pay over the course of a year?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this point, we've covered the fees that will impact everyone. There are a series of others. If you have any specific ones, we'll discuss them. If not, we're kind of at the end of our presentation on the main budget.
All right. Not seeing any comments. We'll open this up. This is a public hearing. Anyone who would like to make a comment is welcome to do so. Hold your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. Seeing no one's coming forward, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of our public hearing and bring it back to the council. As has been mentioned, we have worked on this budget for the last 6 months. We have adopted the tentative budget, which is similar to what we're looking at right now. So I am open to a motion.
I'd be happy to make the motion, Mayor.
Okay.
I recommend that the City Council by ordinance approve and adopt the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, adopt the compensation programs, adopt the fees and charges scheduled, set the property tax, franchise tax, municipal energy sales and use tax, telecommunication license tax, transit route and tax, and E911 fee rates.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Luray first.
Aye.
Okay, Councilmember Seastrand?
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passes. The budget is accepted. Thank you very much, Richard and Brandon. Do we have any city manager communication items? Okay. We will then go ahead, and I would like to make a motion to adjourn to a meeting of the Redevelopment Agency of the City of Orem. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, I would like to call to order the Redevelopment Agency of the City of Orem, and I would like to suggest that we approve the minutes of the Redevelopment Agency meeting of February the 28th, 2017, and May 9th, 2017. Is there a second?
So,
Did you motion?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I move that we accept the minutes of February 28th, 2017 and May 9th, 2017 of the Redevelopment Agency meetings.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Second.
Aye.
I thought you seconded it. I made the motion.
You had two moves.
I don't know what you're
Third,
doing.
second. We have it. It's all around. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Everyone say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay. Okay. We had a lot of seconds on that one. Okay, we will go to our scheduled items. The first one is item number 3. This is a public hearing for the adoption of the Orem RDA FY 2017-18 final budget. And that will be a resolution. Okay. Then a recommendation that the Chief Executive Officer by resolution approve the budget and amend the fiscal year budget. Richard Manning and Brandon Nelson are our presenters.
Thank you, Mayor. So the RDA, there are, just as a general oversight, there has been no changes to it, nothing expressed that needed to be changed from our tentative budget that was presented a month ago. But just to kind of briefly go over the elements here, the revenues related to the RDA, as you can see, are budgeted slightly lower this year. We generally do budget those pretty conservatively because, quite honestly, the RDA information is pretty poor, if you will, as far as giving us the information we need to know. And so, generally speaking, we're budgeting approximately what we anticipate from the current year, except for any known changes that we have to each of the RDA areas. Just as a general knowledge, most of those RDA areas, while still active for the haircut component, which is related to the debt that it was related to them, continue through fiscal year 2021, 2022, and 2024. 9008, which is mentioned on the screen here, is the only active RDA area as far as a regular tax increment that we receive. That's not related to debt. And so just some general highlights of the RDA areas. As you can see here, there's a summary of the expected budget related to each one of those RDA areas. The only participating, I just go back one, Richard. So the
wrong back.
There you go. Back. So I just wanted to know, as you can see there, the Mazda participation, that's the only remaining participation agreement related to the RDAs. And I believe that expires either in this fiscal year, I think it's the fiscal year 19, so I think there's one more year, it might be 18, I can't remember. Let's see. Yeah, this is the last fiscal year for that participation agreement as well. Go ahead. An outline of the remaining debt that is associated with the RDA. Those were sales tax revenue bonds. Are there any questions related to the RDA?
So one thing I would like to point out, it doesn't really show on what you just put up there, but what these RDAs did for the city, particularly I know well the ones that were the 5 that were in 1985. When you look at the technology park, or you look at 800 North where the Macy's shopping center is, or where you look at where U.S. Synthetics are, or where you look where the car lots are, these have been huge economic drivers for our city over the years, and the amount of money that has come in is 100 times what we're showing here.
So just briefly looking through the document, it's approximately $475 million in value for these projects.
That was created by these RDAs.
Correct.
And that is huge. And without that help, these may not have come forward. So
certainly not as quickly as they did.
Some of these were blighted areas where U.S. Synthetics is. That was a peat bog. You have other areas that were orchards. Anyway, this has been huge for the economic development of our city, and I appreciate what they've done. Sam, do you have a thought?
I just wanted to confirm the semantics and the terminology are a little different with the RDA.
Okay.
So when we refer to Board of Directors, in this case, that's the City Council. The Chief Executive Officer, that's Jamie Davidson, our City Manager. Just confirming. Okay.
And Chairman of the Board is.
Yep. Chairman.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. I would like to open it up to the public for anyone who would like to make a comment. Please hold your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. Seeing no one's coming forward, then we will go ahead. Are you wanting to make a comment? Okay.
I just heard him say, except utopia. Are we still paying on that, and how much, and when does it end?
So I'd be happy to meet with you on that. We are still paying on it, and we will be paying until the year 2040. And our payment this year is $3.1 million.
Okay.
Thank you. So we will go ahead and close the public portion of our public hearing and bring it back to the council. And I would like to make a motion unless someone else wants to make a comment. I move that the Redevelopment Agency of the City of Orem approve and adopt the budget for fiscal year 2017-18 and amend the fiscal year 2016-17 budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Debbie, we would like to start with you.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Seastrand?
Aye.
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 Okay, the resolution passes. We'd now like to move on to the annual review of the Redevelopment Agency of the City of Orem bylaws. Do you two have anything you want to say? I don't believe the bylaws
Are there any
changed.
modifications?
Pardon me?
I don't believe there's any modifications.
There is a modification.
There is a modification.
There is a reference in the RDA bylaws to CEDO, and it states that CEDO is the advisory board to the RDA. Since CEDO doesn't exist anymore, we're recommending that you amend the bylaws by resolution by eliminating all of the references to CEDO in the bylaws.
Okay.
Do we need to change them to something? So be the advisory committee or-
So if you want to set up a separate advisory board to the RDA, you can do that. It's just that right now, because CEDO doesn't exist, we're recommending that we eliminate that for now.
Okay.
The governing body is the advisory board and the voting board in this case. So there wouldn't be another layer of review.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to that effect, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
The city, is that what we?
Before we do that, can I just ask Jamie a
course.
question? So with our RDAs, we're essentially kind of in maintenance mode. We're not making any dramatic, turning everything upside down changes. Do you think that's fair that we don't necessarily need the advisory board to continue on the path that we're already on?
Yes, I mean, we're not making dramatic changes. However, there are occasions, even in the last year, where we've come to you with a recommendation to enter into agreements that relate directly to the RDA. For example, the relationship we entered into with the Ken Garf Automotive Group, where we provided them with an incentive in relation to their auto dealerships, but that did not involve reconfiguration or anything. We do, however, have, obviously coming forward, the community development area for University Place and that zone, and that will come on the books.
Fiscal 19.
19, so next year. So it is still a board that remains active, but right now we're more in administrative management mode of the relationships and the agreements that we have. So I wouldn't deem an additional review level as necessary at this time.
And you don't anticipate any additional items coming up that would trigger anything beyond that threshold this year?
No, not this year, no.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
I move that the Board of Directors amend the bylaws to remove Article 5, which designates the Commission for Economic Development in Orem, CEDO, as the advisory board to the RDA. CEDO has been dissolved and no longer performs an advisory role to the RDA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Debbie, would you like to take a vote?
Aye.
Okay, Councilmember Seastrand?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to a meeting of the Special Service Lighting District of the City of Orem. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we now call to order the Special Service Lighting District of the City of Orem. We would like to approve the minutes of the Special Service Lighting District meeting of May 9th, 2017. I make a motion to the effect.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will go ahead and move to our scheduled items. Number 2, this is a public hearing for the adoption of the Orem Special Service Lighting District fiscal year 2017-18 final budget. And we have Richard and Brandon presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. So just as a general overview, the Street Lighting Fund, the Special Service Lighting District of the City of Orem is used, was initially used to be able to put in all of the green light poles you see around the city. Currently, we are able only to basically maintain all of those poles and pay for the power that goes to all those, and that's primarily what this fund does with some, obviously if we have somebody run over a pole, then we're able to potentially be able to get some insurance, for instance, and there are some other replacement type costs that we're able to use this fund to pay for, but the primary purpose currently is maintenance. As you can see from the revenues here, they increased from 1.6 million to 1.7. The primary reason there is the contribution line just above the totals there. That's related to the franchise tax that the general fund receives that was basically committed to the street lights back when the street lighting fund was begun. Are there any questions with those revenues?
The increase of the franchise tax, our revenues go up. Okay, any questions from the council? All right, this is a public hearing, so I'll open it up to the public.
Go back a slide just so I can see it quickly.
Open it up to the public. Anyone who would like to come forward, please do so. State your name. Hold your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one's coming forward, we'll close the public comment portion of our public hearing. Bring it back to the council. Are there any comments from the council? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget of the Special Service Lighting District of the City of Orem. Is there
Mayor, may I just make a comment?
Yeah.
Brandon, you go one back, please. I just want to make the council aware the power costs associated with operating the streetlights are estimated at $340,000, and I'm imagining that a significant portion of the operating budget is for debt service on the light poles.
Of the system lease, you're referring to that dollar?
Yeah.
That's yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm glad you brought that up, Jamie. So one thing I did want to mention, that's why I'm glad you brought it up, is with the recent Siemens Energy lease that we've entered into, that system lease, that's what that's related to, and to some degree, in the sense that a portion of that lease is being paid for by the street lighting fund. That's countered and will be countered as we see going into the future with that power line and those expansions. That we should expect that's what our expectation is by doing this energy lease, right? Is that power line
drop in half.
Continue.
Why isn't it in the total column?
It should be. It just
should be.
Okay,
wasn't brought across.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor.
Okay, so we have a motion. I don't know if there was a second. Is there a second?
Here's one. Second.
Okay. We will go ahead and start. Councilmember LeRae?
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
I just want to keep everybody awake, so. Okay, that passes. We'll now go on to our annual review. Special Service Lighting District of the City of Orem bylaws.
There's no changes, Mr. Mayor.
There are no changes. So would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to move that we adjourn to Municipal Building Authority.
No.
City of.
We've got to adopt it.
Oh, we have to adopt it even with no changes?
By motion, we
Sorry,
need to adopt it.
I move that the that the chief executive, well, I move that we not make any changes at this time.
You move that the Board of Directors.
That's what I moved.
Adopt the bylaws as written.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Larray.
Aye.
Okay, Councilmember Seastrand.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Now can I adjourn this meeting? Now can I try?
The motion passes. Now, if you'd like to make a.
I'd like to adjourn to the Municipal Building Authority of the City of Warren.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay? Nope. Okay, we'll call to order the Municipal Building Authority of the City of Orem. We will begin with approval of the minutes of Municipal Building Authority meeting June 14th, 2016. I make a motion to approve those. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, you got to move quick, Debbie. So our scheduled item number 2 is an annual review. This is the Municipal Building Authority of the City of Orem bylaws. Tom, would you like to make a motion?
No, I don't dare.
Okay. I'll make a motion that the Board of Directors of the authority at a regular meeting adopt the bylaws and not make any changes at this time.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Councilmember Larray.
Aye.
Councilmember Seastrand?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Debbie. You've been great. Appreciate it. And we are done.
Wow.
Yes. No.
No public comment?
If she's not listening close, get caught.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
I'm going to give him mine. Does anyone else need an extra ticket?
I gave mine.
Oh, have you got one more?
I'll just pick them up.
But I
Thanks.
haven't needed for tomorrow. So.
Are you able to get to it? You're leaving Thursday. Are you going to go tomorrow?